Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. I do appreciate you being with me. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Listen, do not forget, you need to take advantage. You know, the month of May is already slipping away. Here we are. We're halfway past, or past halfway, of May 2021. You need to take advantage of my very, very special introductory offer on my brand new book, Circumcision and the New Creation, ? This is an unprecedented book. It has a wealth of information in it. And if you're like some who have initially thought, what's the relevance of a study of circumcision today? I believe that after studying this book, you will see that it is incredibly relevant to today, to the religious world of today. Because the issue of circumcision, well, let me read to you a thought or two from the back page, back cover. The study of circumcision is related to the issue of God's grace, salvation by faith, the issue of eschatology, the modern validity of the law of Moses, the very nature of the new covenant, and the true nature of the new creation. Now, are those relevant issues? I think you would agree with me that they are. And so this book covers all of these issues and more and discusses them in relation to the issue of circumcision. That was the focus of much of Paul's first century polemic with the Judaizers and with the Jews. So regular price, $21.95 for the rest of this month, 2021, May 2021, U.S. orders only. Go to my website, donkpreston.com, bibleprophecy.com. Pardon me. There's a tab right up at the very top. You can order it, and total delivered price, $17.95. So take advantage of that. All right. Well, as I promised last week, we have completed our examination of the parable of the coming of the bridegroom, Matthew 25, 1 to 13. We've spent a good bit of time on that because of how critical it is to understand the doctrine of the marriage of the Lord. That doctrine underlies so much of the Bible. You know, I even made the comment last week that the concept of the wedding runs from Sinai to Revelation. Well, in reality, it begins in the garden. But I don't know why I said Sinai. But the point of it is, this is a subject that spans the entirety of Scripture. It is brought to focus from Sinai onward, but this is a major, major doctrine. That's why I spent so much time developing it. We will not be spending as much time developing the next two parables in Matthew chapter 25, but there is nonetheless a good bit to say about those two parables. Now keep in mind that the dominant view of the Olivet Discourse is that Jesus foretold the prediction or foretold the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. The apostles were literally stunned, and they were. Not that they did not know it wasn't going to happen. It was predicted by the Old Testament prophets, by the way. So, even though they knew on one level it was supposed to happen, it was stunning to hear Jesus speak in such a way that it was going to happen in their lifetime, as he made clear in Matthew 23. And so they said, when shall these things be? What shall be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? Well, as I began to say a moment ago, the dominant view is, look, the apostles knew Jesus was predicting the fall of Jerusalem, but they ignorantly and confusedly linked that destruction of Jerusalem with the Lord's coming and the end of the age. So, therefore, in Matthew 24, the Olivet Discourse, Matthew 24 and 25, Jesus corrected their confusion. He corrected their ignorance. Now, I wrote a book addressing that issue entitled Watching for the Parousia, Were Jesus' Apostles Confused? And it's on my website. But the great question is, were the apostles confused? Were they wrong to associate the fall of Jerusalem with the Lord's coming and the end of the age? Well, Matthew 25 is one of those bits of text from the Olivet Discourse that people tell us, oh, this has to be the end of time. It, of course, comes after Matthew 24, verse 36, in which Jesus said, but of that day and hour knows no man. I was on a Zoom meeting just yesterday out of Great Britain, and the individual asked me about Matthew 24, 36, but of that day and hour. And it is maintained by the great majority of commentators, this is the great dividing line, the continental divide, as one commentator put it, between the discussion of the Olivet Discourse, the discussion of the destruction of Jerusalem in the Olivet Discourse, and the discussion of the end of time. But ladies and gentlemen, that will not stand up, as all of our previous discussion has proven. The discussion of the wedding in Matthew 25, 1 to 13, proves Matthew 24, 36 does not change the subject from the fall of Jerusalem and the Lord's coming into a discussion of the end of time. This is absolutely confirmed in Matthew 25, 14 and following. Let me read that for us in our reading. I'm not going to read it all because it's a rather lengthy read, but the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. And to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability, and immediately went on a journey. Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and made another 5 talents. Likewise, the one who received 2 gained 2 more also. But he who had received 1 went and dug it in the ground, hid the Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. Now, I'll stop right there. We'll read the rest of it in subsequent videos. But this passage is used to prove, supposedly, that the Lord's second coming is yet in our future. Commentators such as Kenneth Gentry, for instance, with whom I have interacted extensively, you can go back and watch those videos. Number one, he assumes, without any kind of proof, that Matthew 24:36 divides the Olivet Discourse into 2 discussions, AD 70, end of the world. And then based on that assumption, first of all, he comes to the parable of the wedding in Matthew 25, 1 to 13, and involves himself in a tremendous self-controversy and contradiction, by doing this. He says Matthew 25, 1 to 13 is what? Oh, end of the world. End of the current Christian age. But then what does he do? Well, he goes to Revelation chapter 21, where John said that he saw the new Jerusalem coming down from God out of heaven as a bride adorned for her husband. And he says this is the time of the wedding in which the old bride, old covenant Israel, is completely supplanted and the new bride takes her place. In other words, it's the time of the wedding. But wait, Matthew 25, 1 to 13, according to Mr. Gentry, is AD 70. I'm sorry, the end of the world. Revelation 21, the time of the wedding, AD 70. Well, evidently, Mr. Gentry must believe, logically, in 2 weddings of the Lord. Well, Mr. Gentry would probably respond by saying, Well, no, AD 70 was a type or a kind of a wedding. It's typological of the real wedding. Well, how do you have a typological? If it was a real wedding, like when Yahweh married Israel at Sinai, then it was real. So, who did the Lord actually, even though it's clearly a metaphor, who did the Lord actually marry in AD 70, and who's he going to marry at the end of time? In fulfillment of that actual marriage. You see the problem? And Mr. Gentry's not alone in this. And then we come down here to verse 19. The master of these servants had called them to himself and said, here are talents, 5, 2, and 1. Take care of this until I come. After a long time. And the commentators say, see, here is proof positive that the coming of the Lord would not be in the first century. It would not be in that generation, because after all, here we are 2,000 years removed from the Lord's departure, and he hasn't come back yet. So 2,000 years is a long time. And so, interestingly enough, what we find here are commentators who say, well, yes, a little while, quickly and shortly, has to be that generation, but a long time must be so far 50 generations or 500 or whatever it happens to be. That claim is so full of false presuppositions as to be all but ludicrous. And so in the ensuing weeks, we're going to be looking at Matthew 25, 14 and following, because it sets before us the motif of the absent master. And I want to tell you what, folks, the motif of the absent master runs from throughout the Gospels right into Revelation. Oh, wait, it's found in the Old Testament as well. So we'll be sharing that with you. Just wanted to get a couple of initial facts in front of us here on this Monday in our study of Matthew 25, 14 and following, and the parable of the absent master. Now listen, folks, this is a good study. You don't want to miss it. And I've got more. So I'll see you on the flip side.